For the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't think we have anybody here for invocation, so roll call, please.
Sabers.
Here.
Goldammer.
Here.
Dosher. McCardle.
Here.
Barrington.
Here.
Bathke. Here. Charts. Here. Smith.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. Approval of consent agenda items. Items appearing on the consent agenda may be removed by a city council member for discussion at the beginning of the formal agenda items. Is there anything you wish to remove? Any discussion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer. Second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? Anybody? I will point out that this does set the election date for June 4th. And I think that's the only main one on there, so. Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion, roll call.
Sabers.
Aye.
Goldammer.
Aye.
Dosher. McCardle.
Aye.
Barrington.
Aye.
Bathke.
Aye.
Charts. Aye. Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries. Citizens input. If you need to address the mayor or member of city council on an item that is not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium, state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken this time. Does anybody wish to address council? Council, got anything you want to bring up?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Okay, action to award bid for West Harmon Water Main Loop Project 2023-7. Mr. Schrader.
Yep. Mr. Mayor, Council, bids were opened on December 12th on City Hall Council Chambers at 1:30. We had 5 bids for this project. Halmy Inc. out of Lake Norton was the low bid for $399,084.50. Bid tabulation was attached for more detailed information. Camden Hofer, professional engineer with SPN Associates, has provided a letter summarizing the bids and recommending the award. This project is one piece of a state revolving fund, SRF loan funding package. Below is a summary of the current funding package with current project budgets. So this specific bid was for the West Harmon Water Main Loop. This SRF package also includes the 12th and 13th Avenue Water Main Loop, which I'll be going through next, and the Highway 37 utility project. With all those bids together, and all these projects have bid, our contingencies with these 3 are $133,888. And with that, staff does recommend awarding the project to Halmy.
So I don't recognize that name. Have we worked with them before?
In Mitchell, no.
And where are they out of?
Lake Norton.
Like, oh yeah, you said that. I knew that you'd said it and I couldn't remember what you said.
So SPN Associates has worked with them on quite a few projects and larger projects, and they were happy that they won the bid.
Great. Awesome. I'm happy they did too.
I should say
I should say,
that they probably would have been happy with any of
Yeah.
these contractors.
of course.
But they said Halmy is a good contractor.
Great. I'll move approval.
Okay, motion by Mrs. Charks. Second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to award bid for 12th and 13th Water Main Loop, Project 2023-08. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council. This bid opening was on December 5th on City Hall Council Chambers at 1:30. 6 bids were received, with Halmy Inc. being the low bid at $562,741.50. Again, the bid tabulation is attached for your information. Mr. Camden Hofer is recommending awarding the project. Again, this, like I said previously, this is one project of a larger SRF loan funding package. And staff does recommend approval to Halmy for the 12th and 13th Water Main Loop project.
Joe, any concerns with having one contractor and getting it done in the amount of time period that you were hoping for?
No, the way we see this is they're filling up their year in Mitchell. The water projects are slated to be completed in '24. The lift station projects I'm going to be talking about here in a bit, they're actually slated for a 25 completion date just because of equipment and timeline. So they'll be order equipment and potentially start this year if they see fit because of how the project goes. And then they'll be able to install the equipment once that comes in. And the equipment, I mean pumps and SCADA, the electrical, those lead times are a little further out than what, say, your pipe materials are and those types of things.
I'll move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Smith,
Second.
second by Mr. Goldhammer. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to award bid for 23rd and Olman Lift Station Project 2022-03. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council. Bids were opened on December 7th in City Hall Council Chambers at 1:30. 4 bids were received, with the low bid being from Halmy Inc. at $1,547,214, or $1,547,214. The bid tabulation is attached for your information. Again, Mr. Camden Hofer from SPN provided a letter summarizing the bids and recommending award. This is part of a state revolving fund loan on the wastewater side. There are 4 projects currently under that one loan. The total SRF loan funding package was $4.76 million. As you can see, our total estimated project costs are roughly around $7 million. So we are short as far as our funding package goes, but we do have available funds in our enterprise fund to cover our shortfalls, so we won't have to take out additional loan. And staff is recommending awarding the project to Halmy Inc. And I can answer any questions you may have.
With moving this across the street, will there still be access or ability to put a path for walking in?
Certainly, yep, we won't affect, there's currently is a gravel path now. We'll make sure it's being placed so that gravel path will stay as is when the project is done.
And it won't be so bad smelling over there
This
anymore.
this is so long overdue for those poor people that live down there.
It is.
I'll move approval of Halmy Inc.
Motion by Mrs. Charks,
Second.
second by Mr. Goldhammer. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to award bid for Olman Lift Station Project 2023-16. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council, these bids were opened on December 14th in City Hall Council Chambers at 1:30. 3 bids were received, with Halmy Inc. being the low bid at $1,239,223.50. There is a bid tabulation attached for more detailed information. Again, Mr. Hofer with SPN provided a letter summarizing the bids and recommending award. This is, again, one piece of an overall SRF funding package. Costs are shown, and staff does recommend approval of Halmy Inc. I can answer any questions you may have.
This is the lift station out by the lake.
Yep, it'd be right on the
North of the
corner
bay.
of South Harmon and Holman.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. McCardle,
Second.
second by Mr. Goldhammer. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve 2024 official depositories.
This is
Mrs.
just the
Bath?
yearly approval of the depositories for the city.
Move approval.
Motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? Mr. Smith, are you going to
I will be
abstain?
abstaining.
Okay. Okay. Anybody in the audience wish to address these? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve application of PSG Premier Enterprises LLC for a vehicle for hire. Mrs. Bathke, you want to start this off?
The applicant has submitted all necessary documents, and I believe the applicant is here if you have any questions.
He's waiting for a party to board the bus, so if we hurry.
Hallelujah. approval.
Okay, motion by Mrs. Charks. Second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience want to say? You want to say anything, John? Okay. Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve agreement A 2024-01 with HR Green for bidding and construction phases of the 7th and Main Traffic Light Project. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council. Council approved the design of new traffic lights at 1st and Main and 7th and Main intersections in May of '22 with HR Green. The replacement of the traffic signals at 7th and Main is budgeted for 2024. HR Green services will include project management, bidding services, construction administration, staking, and project observation. Project is expected to be bid in February and completed in the fall of '24. Staff does recommend approval of HR Green's proposal, an amount not to exceed $62,417.50 for professional services. And I can answer any questions you may have.
Motion by Mr. Savers.
Just a clarification that this is just for the design. This is not for the,
Design is completed. This is
Oh,
for
okay.
bidding and
approve the
construction.
design, okay. Oh, got it, replacement, okay, great. Awesome.
Second.
Second by Mr. Goldhammer. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve agreement A 2024-02, construction phase services for state revolving fund loan, water projects with SPN Associates. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council, this is related to the water projects that you previously approved earlier in the meeting. These projects were identified to be completed through a facility plan through SPN in our planning process. The proposed contract will provide various construction phase services, including on-site observation and construction surveying. City staff will be completing construction administration for these projects, so project management, pay requests, those types of items. So SPN will not have those services in this contract. And we do recommend approval of the attached agreement with SPN in an amount not to exceed $278,500. And this is for construction phase services. I can answer any questions you have.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer.
Second.
Second by Mr. McCardle. He edged in under you.
Good.
Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve agreement A 2024-03, construction phase services for wastewater state revolving fund loan oh, I read the wrong one, I'm sorry. Oh, no, I didn't.
No, you're right.
Caught me with SPN there twice. Action to approve agreement A 2024-03, construction phase services for wastewater revolving fund loan projects with SPN and Associates.
Yep, Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Schrader.
Council, this is for the wastewater side of this SRF loan with the projects that you just previously approved. The proposed contract will provide various tasks, which include full construction administration, construction observation, and surveying. City staff will do construction administration for the Highway 37 project. This will be full services from SPN for the lift station project. Staff does recommend City Council approval of the attached agreement with SPN in an amount not to exceed $531,000 for these services, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. McCardle,
Second.
second by Mr. Goldhammer. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address any of these? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve agreement A 2024-04, Fifth Avenue reconstruction from Burr to Foster, project 2024-02 with Bros Engineering.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council, my last one for the evening. Bros Engineering was requested to provide a proposal for design and bidding services for a Fifth Avenue. That would have been in the fall of '22. as a project that was slated for an SRF $1,710, which I do recommend approval. The project will replace 3,300 feet of 4-inch and 6-inch cast iron water main and 3,150 feet of clay sewer pipe. It will also replace any needed sidewalk, and all the curb and gutter and surfacing will be replaced with this project as well. And with that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Charles. Second by Mr. Bethke. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this?
Any idea how long it'll take to do this project?
So the design, we're hoping to bid in the fall of '24 with construction in '25. A project like this, we like to get this out in front of the public and have it be very, we like involvement from the people who live in that area, just because it's a busy street. It gets used a lot. A lot of people live on that corridor. So there's going to be, hospital. So there's going to have to be a lot of coordination on how we're going to get people to places, detour, those types of things. So yeah, this will be one of those projects that we work a lot with the public and keep them updated through this process.
Are you thinking like 6 months or?
It will be a
Ish.
full construction season.
Okay.
I expect starting in spring of '25 and finishing in the fall of '24.
That means we'll have snow until May of '25, and it'll
Yeah.
start snowing in September.
Profit of June.
Anybody in the audience wish to, oh, go ahead.
When we go to rebuild the sidewalks, would it be possible to build them wide enough for a bike path or to be considered a bike path?
Potentially, if that's the direction we would want to go. Currently, Fifth Avenue, we do not have a planned bike route for that area or location, but not to say we couldn't. And that's something we could investigate as we move through.
That's a great thought, Tim. I served for a while when Nathan was here with Park and Rec, and we had a citywide bike path, plan that was laid out. Do you have a copy of that?
I do.
Yeah. So I don't know how that falls into that, but is that?
I don't believe it's slated as a bike path location, but not to say it can't be.
Keep in mind, we have limited land over there in which, I mean,
It's tighter over there. I could see issues with snow removal.
right. So, okay, anything else? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Agreement A 2024-07, internship agreement with Northwest Iowa Community College. Chief Polrice.
Mayor and council, what this is a paramedic internship agreement with that community college in Iowa. We have similar agreements with Sanford Health and Lake Area Tech. In order to become a paramedic, you need to do an internship. We actually have 2 of ours are going to be doing internships starting in February at different services. They have to be done at an advanced life support service, which would be us. And it would be ran under one of our paramedic preceptors. We would also be hoping to use this as a recruiting tool for us as well. We've actually, in the past, been able to bring people who have interned with us on board at the department. So I can answer any questions if you have.
Sounds like a good deal to me. I'll move approval.
Motion by Mr. McCardle. Second by Mr. Sabers. Further discussion?
Are you down on staff right now?
No, we're fully staffed right now.
That's kind of fluid, though, it changes.
The reason I ask is I had a good friend, had a stroke, was in the hospital and requested a ride last week, and he was denied a ride from our ambulance because they were short-staffed, they were told. So an ambulance came from Brandon and took him to Sioux Falls.
Yep, that actually happens quite a bit. The only way we could get around that would be to add a lot more staffing. We work at a minimum number of people, so depending on, our fully staffed is 8 per shift, and if we send 2 people on a call, we can work down to 6. That's our minimum staffing. Our minimum staffing is 6, so if we send 2 people on a Sioux Falls transfer, we need to call people back in to cover that, because we have to cover any other emergency calls that might come up. So in order to do that, the city would end up having to hire quite a few more people. It's an unfortunate thing. I've been working with our medical director, Dr. Schaefer, to see if we can come up with some other solutions. But the fact is we have to cover 911 emergency calls. We're legally obligated to cover those calls in the ambulance coverage that we have. And you're right, it happens, and it happens a lot. And I wish there's something else we could do about it. But where we're staffed right now, that's just the reality of it.
And to clarify, Dan, that's just for transfers outside of the city limits, because we're keeping those employees here within the city limits for
Correct, yep.
responding to emergencies.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay. Anybody in the audience wish to address this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by, whoops, I guess we need a motion. Oh, no, we haven't. I read wrong line again. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Resolution R 2024-01, a resolution establishing a sales tax grant incentive program for the city of Mitchell. Ms. Elwine, you want to start us off?
Yep. Council, included in the packet is a draft resolution that would outline the criteria for approval of a sales tax grant initiative program. The intent behind the resolution, thanks, Jessica. There you go. I'll talk right into it. Sorry about that. The intent behind the resolution is to create kind of a standard so that anyone who meets the criteria that would be outlined in the program would have the opportunity to apply. Where we would have an application process that's very similar to our TIF program. Some of the criteria that are included in the resolution, of course, council can change these through your discussion tonight, would be a minimum increase in sales or new sales of at least $2 million. The grant would be limited to 2% of the documented annual sales, because that's what the city receives back in sales tax. The grant cannot exceed the identified funding grant gap needed for the new or expanding business. The grant period cannot exceed 5 years. The retailer would be required to verify the sales on an annual basis before the incentive is paid out, similar to what we do with the TIF increment. When we receive it, we know how much we've received in before we pay that out. And then the costs identified in the funding gap would need to be verified before the grant is paid. That's very similar to what we do with TIF process as well. Just for background, we surveyed other cities. Most cities have not implemented something like this yet, but a lot of them are talking about doing it now. The minimum that you see in the resolution actually came from the city of Pierre. They held a hearing and approved their incentive program within the last year. They also do 2% of the sales, and they have the limit of 5 years. That was consistent in 3 of the cities, and as well as the funding gap.
Would there be any merit to having a cap on how much revenue? I mean, let's say that there was a business that was coming in and they did like $9 million.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way that would it be? I mean, I guess I'm curious about whether there would be.
You mean limiting the total amount?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's this part of me that's like, I know, and I get the big. I do know
Yep.
the big picture, but there's also this part of me that's like, well, we're forgiving our entire sales tax revenue from that business for 5 years potentially, and I just like there's this part of me that's like.
If they were to pay it, if they were to have higher sales than expected, it would pay it off a lot quicker, too.
And the other thing is that cap would be identified by whatever the gap in funding is. So let's say a new establishment was coming to town and they were putting in a $4 million new building. They got a TIF for $3 million of it, and we were just trying to solve that gap. Well, they would be limited to 2% of what sales tax they paid in during that 5-year period. Yeah, so that's why we
That's your
won't let the
built-in
funding
cap.
go above whatever that identified gap is.
We
Can't
have
get a
been,
grant beyond
we have been asked for this previously, and we haven't had anything in place. So currently, we have somebody who's interested in bringing a large retail chain to Mitchell on the north side of town, which we know we need something on the north side of town. They need some kind of incentive to be able to move forward with it. That's how this all came to be.
And I guess the primary concern or the reason for having a resolution is so that this could be pretty consistently and fairly applied when the criteria are met. So the public has the opportunity to comment on that tonight, what they think of the program, and then moving forward, it's really just we're administering that program that the council has already approved, and under the guidelines that you approved.
So assuming we pass this resolution tonight, then these criteria are etched in stone, and we have no flexibility to have a discussion based on who's coming and what kind of a business it is or anything. Correct? Correct? Does that make sense?
You would be limited to the 5 years, to the 2%, and that they have to have a minimum of $2 million in a funding gap identified. Now, just like any other resolution, if council decides you've heard a couple presentations and we're too narrow in our scope, council can always amend a resolution and expand that in the future, but at least it gives us a starting point. At least in the proposal, I felt comfortable that another city had the same public discussion. They have the same criteria in place to begin with. This is new for us. We have no idea how many people are going to utilize it. If you find it's too restrictive, council can always make the decision to change that.
And I'd say the other side of that coin too is if you find that it's too flexible and there's too many things that are qualifying for it, you can always readjust and reevaluate the criteria to make it more strict. You know, the criteria are there to help make this as a more objective process, but I think there's always going to be a small subjective component when you're looking at those funding gaps and how those fit together and how those compare with the overall potential sales and everything, so.
And we pretty much just kind of picked some of the parameters out of the air. So if you want to change them, you
Actually,
can.
everything that's on that was documented that another city is using that as a measure. So that's why we based it off. We wanted something that people are already using too. as a
You mentioned it was
starting
from
point.
Pier, right, I think?
Yep.
Right? And how long do they have something like this in place, do you know?
They started theirs last year. They've had 2 retailers that have applied under it. One of it never actually got payment back because they never met their minimum.
Right.
Sturgis was using it quite a bit. They have since stopped because what they were seeing is a lot of the sales increases were just actually cannibalizing other businesses in town. So they started making them look at the actual sales category to see if that category was increasing instead of just the overall sales. They also were asking to make sure that the entire city sales were higher than what the grant was giving out, so the city wasn't ever going backwards in revenue. And Vermillion has a little bit, and that's the only ones that have so far. There was 3 or 4 that are looking at doing something similar. They all want copies of whatever we end up doing, so we'll see.
And there's no question this will need to be tweaked over time. It's not set in concrete, but it's a good guideline to use, and as we get into this, we'll find things that need to be modified.
So obviously, go ahead, Marty.
The one thing, I mean, it's obviously glad that other cities are using it, and obviously, I'm great that we're having a tool that can come on up. I mean, we all know, we all hear it from all our constituents on how we need some type of growth in this community, retail being one, and several others, obviously with restaurants and everything else that we've had lately. So any kind of creative financing, whatever we want to call this, that we can bring together as a council, as a community, as a city, we need to take every look at every avenue because we need to start going in a positive direction, and right now we're not. So I'm all for something like this. I agree with you, Mr. Mayor. It's probably going to have to be tweaked as we go along, but at least we are trying to do something and move this city in a positive fashion. So I'm all for this type of creative financing, I guess let's call it. So.
And really, one of the only tools cities have right now is TIFs. And as you know, we use those extensively. I think we're the 3rd highest TIFs in the state. So it just gives us another way to try to close that gap when somebody's considering coming here and maybe there's just still short a little bit of an incentive. In this case, it was the request came to the city. We were the ones that were asked to contribute.
And that's what I was going to make, just to expand on Marty's comments, is this could be a huge recruiting tool for the Development Corporation. I know Mike wants to say a few words here, so if you want to hop in, that'd be great.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I think this is a great first step. We can always make changes. I talked with Toby Morris earlier today. I had a friend that's a city councilor in Pierre talking to him about using this, and he said, talk to Toby, he knows more about it. Toby said, Spearfish, Pierre, Yankton, Harrisburg, Brookings, Sisseton are all using it as a recruitment tool, and there's other communities currently looking at it. He said, he shared a good story. He said, we were pioneers when Cabela's came to town. We used Community Development Block Grant to put infrastructure underground so we could start that development. He said, you were pioneers when you did that. You guys should be using this as well. And I said, yeah, I have my fingers crossed. We're hopeful that the council will approve this, and I think Stephanie's done a great job explaining it. It's a great first step for us, and it'll be a great recruitment tool for us.
I can't speak to what Toby Morris said. I'm just going off what the city managers and city administrators reported back to me, not what they're doing. They may have done it previously.
Yeah.
They aren't currently.
Some have done it and stopped, like Sturgis, but
I don't know who came up with this, but it's the best thing I've seen in a long time. I mean, I see no negative. We need people in town, so whoever come up with it is a great idea, and I'm all for it. And that way I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Savers. Second by Mr. Barrington. Okay, further discussion.
Yeah, hey, Mike, stay up there just for a second. So, I mean, Marty brings up a good point about restaurants, and I wondered if this was something that we could do that would be similar to, in, I don't know if you would need to lower the sales increase. I don't know, I'm not sure what a restaurant makes these days, but is there some way that we could do another version of this that would maybe appeal to restaurateurs?
if the council would like to do that, absolutely.
If you know how many restaurants we have in Mitchell, $89 million is what they sold last year, so.
So maybe we would need to lower that.
I don't think we have 89 restaurants in Mitchell, so. They probably make close to $2 million in the restaurant business.
That'd be a small one.
So what's your, I
Would it
guess
be a small one?
I'm not,
Okay, so I think the 2 million may make it. And
Okay, I see what you're
maybe if they need it,
figure out what you're saying.
maybe if they're smaller and need it, you have a tool now,
Yeah.
and you could.
So you don't think we would need to make any kind of an?
Well, it's up to you guys, but I don't know.
I guess I'd leave that to the development corpus
Well,
if you guys think we need.
Actually, that would
Well,
come to council to make a
right.
decision
But
on
maybe
that
their
resolution. The restaurants actually fall under retail. So if you're wanting to add a different provision for restaurants, we currently, if you look up here, we have $76 million worth of sales in restaurants so far year to date. Last year was 81 million. That's what the city of Mitchell sales are.
Which, given the number of restaurants, is a substantial sale. So I'm not saying they can make 2 million, I'm not saying they will or they won't, but it's a starting point. And you could always waive on their application that criteria if you so desire. Am I right, Mr. Johnson?
You might need to readdress the criteria and approve that by resolution, but that's always an option to reevaluate those.
Okay.
One of the things that I would at least like to discuss or consider is putting I don't know if prohibition is the right word, but something that prevents alcohol sales, gambling, or cigarettes to be used in this grant fund, those sales categories, as something that I think Mitchell probably has enough, if not too many. And so if we're looking at incentivizing people to come to Mitchell, I think that, the reason I phrase it that way is that it probably would be better than trying to create some arbitrage of what we want or don't want in the money used for this grant fund as well.
Well, currently, you can't get a new license with video lottery in Mitchell. We're out of them. So you would have to buy somebody's that already exists, I guess, which means you're losing one if you're putting a new one out. It's up to you, whatever. You guys tell us what you want in here, and we can get it in.
Justin, can't we address that when it comes down the road?
Yeah, like I said a couple times, you can always come back and review these criteria and make whatever changes you
I
want.
mean, I'd hate to see a big chain restaurant, steakhouse come in that would be really good for Mitchell. You know, that's not a bar, but, and maybe it's something we feel we need. I mean, you know, there's different types of alcohol places.
Right. I was going to spin off of that exact, Dan, is with the word liquor involved, the fact that, let's say Ruby Tuesdays, okay, they have a liquor license out there. You put that provision in there and all of a sudden you have a restaurant chain that wants to come to town saying, well, we're only coming if we're going to get a liquor license. And they can find one. Everything is for sale.
Sure.
We all know that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we have this possible incentive to do that. And then we got that word in there and now they're considering, well, we're not going to come. I just careful on those steps and maybe it's something down the road we want to look at. I think we got a good start in place. And like I said before, it might have to be tweaked. It's really simple to say liquor, video lottery, smoking, but you got to keep in mind, what does that really govern? It isn't just liquor and gambling and smoking. It brings in other things into play, and a big chain restaurant is definitely number one.
Yeah, I like keeping it vague at this point in time and not get really bogged down, and then if we need to tweak it, like Justin said, we can do that. And you know, in reality, they're going to come to the council one at a time. So we literally could sit here and have that conversation. That, you know, it's just, we feel that, you know, this isn't unique. We got enough competition in town the way it is. If they want to do it, they're going to have to do it on their own. But to me, it's we can sit there and look at and determine. And then later on, if we need to add some language, then I think we can. But it's not a bad idea, but I just think let's maybe keep it open at this point and then start honing in if you need to down the road.
Okay. Anything else you need criteria-wise modified? No. Anybody else in the audience wish to address this? Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Motion to enter into executive session according to South Dakota Codified Law 125-23 legal.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer, second by Mr. Barrington. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. No action taken after executive session. We're adjourned.